Ever get the feeling that some countries, well, they're like the strong, silent type?
I see what you mean.
Like they've got a lot going on,
Yeah.
but they don't always broadcast it.
Right,
It's
yeah.
like that with Japan and their startup scene, wouldn't you say?
Definitely.
I mean, we're so used to hearing about Silicon Valley.
Absolutely.
But today, we're diving into a plan, and it reveals Japan's ambition to become like the next big startup powerhouse.
Fascinating stuff.
Seriously, we've got their 5-year plan right here, all 25 pages of it,
Oh.
translated and ready to unpack. And trust me, it is full of surprises.
I bet. What I find really interesting is how Japan is kind of acknowledging its past
Right.
while also aiming for this radical transformation.
Yeah.
They've had huge success with companies that started small, think Sony, think Toyota.
Right.
But when you look at the current landscape, it paints a different story.
It's almost like a company, right,
Yeah.
that realizes its old strengths. They just aren't enough anymore.
It happens.
They're facing the music. Low startup rates,
Yeah.
a heavy reliance on IPOs,
Right.
even cultural factors like hesitation around personal guarantee,
Yeah.
which anyone in startups knows that can make securing funding, early stages especially, a real challenge.
Absolutely. And that's why I think this document is so fascinating.
Okay.
Because it doesn't shy away from those, let's call them uncomfortable truths.
Yeah.
It actually highlights them, almost like they're saying, we know what needs to change.
So let's talk about what they're actually proposing. What's the big idea here?
So in a nutshell, they want to completely revamp their approach to startups.
Okay.
And they're putting their money where their mouth is, aiming to increase startup investment tenfold over the next 5 years.
Wow.
We're talking a goal of 10 trillion yen.
That's
Huge.
a serious statement of intent.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, how do you even begin to achieve something like that? It can't just be about throwing money at the problem, right?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And this is where their plan gets really clever.
Okay.
It's structured around 3 core pillars,
Okay.
each one designed to tackle a specific challenge that's been holding their startup scene back.
Okay. I'm intrigued. So let's break down these pillars. What's the first one all about?
So Pillar 1 focuses on what I would call the foundation of any successful startup ecosystem, talent and networks.
Makes sense. Can't build a tech empire without brilliant minds, right?
Exactly. But it's not just about having talented people.
Right.
It's about fostering a culture of collaboration, risk-taking,
Yeah.
and I think, crucially, a global outlook.
Global.
And that's where things get even more interesting because they've specifically identified a lack of global exposure as a major roadblock for Japanese startups.
So how do they plan to change that? I mean, I'm guessing they're not just talking about sending entrepreneurs to, like, international conferences, are they?
Well, they are doing that, but it goes way deeper.
Okay.
One of the most fascinating parts of this pillar is this plan to send 1,000 young entrepreneurs abroad over the next 5 years.
Hold on. Did you say 1,000?
1,000.
That's a bold move. Where are they sending them?
They're aiming for really immersive experiences, particularly focused on Silicon Valley. The idea is to give them that firsthand exposure to, arguably the most dynamic startup ecosystem in the world.
It's like a cultural exchange, but for startups.
Exactly.
I can already imagine the impact that this could have, not just on the individual entrepreneurs, but on, like, the whole Japanese startup scene when they come back.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got our talent pipeline, right?
Yeah,
It's buzzing with global energy.
it is.
But what about the fuel to turn those ideas into reality? That's where Pillar 2 comes in, right?
You got it. Pillar 2 is all about fueling growth.
Okay.
And importantly, diversifying those exit strategies. This is where they address the financial side of the equation.
So show me the money. What are they actually doing to attract more investment?
So they're tackling this on several fronts. First, they're using government funds to incentivize investment in startups.
Right.
They're also encouraging participation from public institutions like the Government Pension Investment Fund.
Okay, got it. But why is their involvement so significant?
Well, GPIF, you might want to remember that acronym.
GPIF. Yeah.
GPIF is huge in the investment world.
Okay.
They manage trillions of dollars in assets.
Wow.
And historically, they've been very risk-averse.
Right, right.
But if they get involved in the startup ecosystem, that could be a real game changer.
That makes sense. Getting an institution like that on board,
Yeah,
it sends a really powerful message to other investors, right?
absolutely.
Both domestically and internationally.
Yeah,
But it's not just about attracting new money, is it?
right.
It's also about changing how that money flows, how it's used.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And one of the biggest challenges they've identified is this over-reliance on IPOs
Okay.
as the primary exit strategy.
Right, right.
And it's created this culture of short-termism,
Oh, interesting.
where startups are often aiming for a quick payout
Right.
rather than building sustainable businesses for the long haul.
Interesting. Okay, so how does this plan address that? What's their solution? What's the alternative?
So they are really promoting diversification,
Right.
encouraging more mergers and acquisitions, M&A,
Right.
as really viable exit strategies.
Got it.
And this does a couple of things. One, it gives startups more options.
Makes sense.
But two, and I think this is key, it encourages investors to take a much longer-term perspective.
So we're seeing a shift from like a get-rich-quick mentality.
Yeah, very much so, to a more sustainable long-term approach.
Exactly.
They're really trying to create like a more mature and resilient startup ecosystem.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
It's fascinating. I mean, this is all starting to make a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
They're building this talent pool.
Yeah.
They're securing the funding, fostering a healthier investment culture.
Mm-hmm.
But something tells me there's more to this plan.
Oh, it's more.
What is this third pillar all about?
The third pillar.
Yeah.
This is where it gets strategic.
Okay.
This is where they talk about embracing open innovation.
So it's about what? Recognizing that innovation doesn't just happen in a vacuum.
Pillar 3 is all about that.
Hmm.
It's about moving beyond that, traditional disruptive innovation model,
Right.
and instead really leveraging the strengths of Japan's existing corporate giants.
Interesting. So instead of startups, like always trying to disrupt everything,
Right.
they're being encouraged to collaborate with the kind of established players.
Exactly. Think about it. Japan, they've already got all these huge corporations, right? With incredible resources, expertise, global reach.
Yeah.
The plan wants startups to tap into that, create partnerships that benefit both sides.
Yeah, I can see the appeal. Startups, I mean, they get access to resources and markets that would normally take like years to build on their own.
Exactly.
While those big companies, they get a much needed, I don't know, shot in the arm of fresh innovation.
Exactly. It's a classic win-win.
Totally.
And they're not just like hoping that this is going to happen organically.
Right.
They're actually putting things into place like tax breaks,
Yeah.
regulatory changes, all designed to incentivize these collaborations, make it easier for those big corporations to invest in,
Right.
and even acquire promising startups.
Oh, interesting. So it sounds like they're really pulling out all the stops to create this more collaborative,
Oh, yeah.
symbiotic relationship
Absolutely.
between startups and the big corporations, which is fascinating, right? Because it's such a departure from that typical David versus Goliath narrative
Right,
that
yeah.
we always hear about in the tech world.
It's a different approach.
Okay, so we've got our three pillars: talent, funding, and then this really strategic collaboration. But I'm curious, were there any details in this plan that, I don't know, that really surprised you? Anything that stood out?
There were actually a couple of things. One that immediately jumped out at me was this plan to establish a global startup campus.
Oh, okay. That's
Sort of
sounds
like
all-
in Japan.
Cool. What exactly is a global startup campus?
So picture this. A physical space.
Okay.
A hub, right?
Right.
Where international talent, cutting-edge research, it
Yeah.
all converges.
Got it.
They're aiming to attract the best and brightest from all over the world, basically creating an ecosystem that rivals Silicon Valley, but with this, uniquely Japanese twist.
Wow, talk about a bold move. It's like they're creating a beacon, right?
Yeah.
For global startup talent, like inviting the world to come and innovate in Japan. Were there any other details that surprised you at all?
Yeah, there was one, and this might seem kind of small at first, but I think it reveals a really significant shift in their thinking. They're actually taking steps to, that really rigid Japanese labor market.
Oh, right. And that has been a barrier, right, traditionally to startup growth.
Huge barrier.
Yeah.
Because you've got that lifetime employment model, which, while it offers stability,
Right.
it doesn't really lend itself to the whole fluidity and risk-taking that you need in startup culture.
Right.
But by addressing it head on, it really shows they're willing to adapt,
Yep.
to
Yeah.
evolve, meet the needs of a rapidly changing economy.
It's like they're acknowledging that attracting top talent, especially from overseas,
Yes.
requires more than just financial incentives,
You
right?
got it.
It requires a cultural shift.
100%.
And speaking of cultural shifts, the plan actually outlines some initiatives specifically to attract foreign entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
going as far as easing visa restrictions,
Wow.
and even addressing, like, language barriers.
That's huge.
Which, wow, okay, they're really rolling out the red carpet for the world's startup stars. I mean, it's clear they're serious about this. They want to be a global player in the startup world.
They're not messing around.
And they're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we've unpacked the plan. It's ambitious, for sure. But the big question is, I mean, can Japan actually pull this off?
That is the trillion-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
Because on paper, they've identified the challenges, right?
Right.
They've laid out this comprehensive roadmap for change.
There's always a but.
Right. Of course. And I think while the plan itself is impressive, ultimately, whether it succeeds or fails depends on execution.
Right.
And maybe even more importantly, a real shift in mindset.
Because it's a big shift, isn't it?
A huge one.
Can a country that's, I mean, let's face it, known for its meticulous planning, right?
Right.
And, like, risk-averse business culture.
Yeah.
Can it really become this breeding ground for, you know, disruptive innovation?
It's like, can you blend,
Okay.
traditional calligraphy with, like, street art?
It's a clash of cultures almost.
Yeah.
But maybe, just maybe, that's where the magic happens.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this plan so fascinating. It's
Right.
not just about, copying what's worked somewhere else.
Right.
It's about forging their own path. They are acknowledging those unique strengths.
And those unique challenges.
Yeah.
And they're saying, okay, we're going to use those as building blocks.
It's like they're creating a hybrid model almost.
Yeah.
Blending the best of both worlds.
Right.
You've got that discipline, that long-term vision that Japan is known for.
Yep.
But you combine that with, like, the agility,
Yes.
the risk-taking spirit of Silicon Valley.
It's a potent combination.
And let's not forget, Japan has a history of proving people wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. They transformed themselves from, like, a war-torn nation into this economic powerhouse.
Exactly. So why not again?
So who are we to say they can't do it again?
Exactly.
This time on the global startup stage,
This is it.
they've got that track record. And this time, it feels different, right?
Right.
Because they're not just playing catch-up. Right.
They're actually, like, trying to rewrite the rules of the game.
Yeah.
They're not saying, oh, we want to be another Silicon Valley.
Right, right.
They want to create something that is uniquely Japanese.
And that's where it gets really exciting. Because if they succeed,
Yeah.
it's not just a win for Japan, right? It's a win for, like, the whole global startup ecosystem.
It's true. Imagine the innovation
would
that could
cause-
emerge from this fusion of East meets West.
Right.
This, like, blend of tradition and disruption.
It's huge. It's like opening a Pandora's box, right?
Entirely new industries might pop up, technologies that, right now we haven't even dreamt of yet.
It's true.
And honestly, that's what I find so inspiring about this whole plan.
Yeah.
Is like this reminder that innovation, it can come from anywhere, at any time.
Yeah.
It's really a testament to the power of, I don't know, human ingenuity
It is.
to push those boundaries.
Yes.
Redefine what's possible.
Love it.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive here,
Yeah.
I'm left with this real sense of anticipation.
Oh, yeah.
What will this new era of Japanese innovation bring? I mean, who knows, right?
Who knows?
Will we see Tokyo emerge as, like, a rival to Silicon Valley?
That's the question.
Only time will tell.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think one thing is for sure, the startup world, it's just got a whole lot more interesting.
A lot more interesting.
And for you, our listener, keep an eye on Japan.
Keep watching it.
Pay attention to those companies
Yes.
that emerge from this new wave.
Yeah.
Because, they just might change the world.
They might.